Over at Mediaite, there's a thank you letter from Noah Beck. I don't know Noah Beck. Doesn't much matter. It is a contributing letter of thanks. He writes from Hamas to the media. It originally appeared in Al Jaminer, another website. And so Noah Beck writes, on behalf of a slobbering media to Hamas, as follows. Dear members of the mainstream media, you've been awesome. Everyone knows that we start unwinnable wars with Israel because the real victory happens when you predictably side with us each time. He's writing as if he's from Hamas, obviously. And you've been so supportive of our strategy that we really want to acknowledge your helpfulness. In particular, we thank you for focusing so much more on our suffering than anyone else's. Nigerians must die in far greater numbers before you take notice, so we're glad that you value our lives so much more. Minimizing your coverage, if any, of our attacks that led up to Israel's military response, and generally providing so little context that outsiders think the Israelis kill Palestinians just for fun. We're especially grateful to the French media for this. Their distortions of the conduct are so one-sided that they incite Muslims across France to attack Jews in synagogues, and that is welcomed by our anti-Semitic worldview, although unfortunately such attacks remind everyone why Jews need a state. Emphasizing our civilian death toll without explaining that, one, our casualty reports are hasty and inflated, and two, we maximize that total by using Palestinians to shield our weapons and by urging them to stay in the very areas that the IDF, in its annoying effort to minimize our civilian deaths, warns Gazans to evacuate. Yes, we want to praise you in the media, we do Hamas, for never mentioning the fact that if we could kill millions of Israelis, we would. After all, our charter calls for Israel's destruction. Just as the 9/11 hijackers made the most of what they had, but would have liked to kill far more Americans, for example, with the help of WMD, we too would love to kill far more Israelis. Indeed, we have purposely targeted Israel's nuclear reactor on several occasions with that very goal in mind. Fortunately, you never highlight the genocidal intent behind our attacks when mentioning Israel's, quote, disproportionate, unquote, response. So we in Hamas want to thank you in the media for more. Never calling us jihadists, even though we persecute Christians, like the ISIS, which just compelled Mosul's Christians to convert to Islam, the forced conversion, expulsion, or murder of Christians and other religious minorities by Islamists has been happening for millennia, as assiduously documented in Crucified Again. But such historical context is thankfully absent from your reporting on our conflict with Israel. Yes, we, Hamas, want to thank the American media for downplaying how bad we are for Gazans by not reporting on, for example, our attack on the very Israeli power station that provides electricity to 70,000 Gazans. Thankfully, you also ignored how the Israelis exposed their workers to the perils of our rockets so they could restore that power. Thank you for minimally reporting on our corruption, unfair wealth, our vast expenditures on tunnels to attack Israel while ordinary Palestinians grow poorer, for overlooking how to maximize Palestinian deaths. We store our missiles in UNRWA, that is, UN-run schools, and how when UNRWA finds out, they just hand us our missiles back. Thank you for disregarding Arabs who have the courage to critique us, like Dr. Tawfiq Hamid, an Islamist-turned-reformer who blames Palestinian suffering entirely on us. Ignoring Israelis' humanitarian folly and providing medical aid to the very terrorists trying to kill them. Failing to acknowledge Israel's immense restraint. Had we been fighting Syria's Assad regime, by now Gaza would have been flattened, devastated by barrel bombs, poison gas, and other attacks that are far more indiscriminate than Israel's intelligence-directed strikes. And of course, if Syria were killing us, you'd hardly care. But luckily, we're dealing with Israel, that country that everyone loves to hate, so we can count on your helpful coverage here. Thank you, media, says Hamas, for admitting how Israel chose to sacrifice dozens of their IDF soldiers when destroying our tunnels and weapons in densely populated areas, because doing so with airstrikes, which risked no soldiers, would have killed many thousands of Palestinians. Your friendly omission on such crucial facts reminds us of how wonderfully you've covered Jenin in 2002, when again, rather than praise Israel's humane but costly decision to use ground troops rather than airstrikes, you very helpfully and falsely accused Israel of a massacre during another IDF operation to stop Palestinian terrorists attacking Israeli citizens. And thank you for not sharing with your English readers what we openly say in Arabic, that we view any truce as just an opportunity to rearm for our next war against Israel. And it goes on. Love Hamas. You see, the media in this country is a liberal statist media. I just read you the Pew survey of Democrats who were surveyed and how 29% of them blame Hamas for what's going on and 26% blame Israel. A statistical tie. And how the Republicans overwhelmingly blame Hamas. It's an amazing thing, isn't it? We conservatives believe in liberty for ourselves and for others. We reject tyranny for ourselves and for others. We conservatives are a moral people. We conservatives, dare I say, are a righteous, tolerant, beneficent people. We're not like our liberal fellow Americans, are we? We think almost completely differently than they do, and for good reason. Their mindset is totalitarian and increasingly so, as I've been saying for the longest time now. This is what's going on. This is what's been going on. The Democrat Party is now controlled by radical leftists, Marxists, if you will, as I've pointed out time and time and time again, utopian statists, if you prefer, and the consequences are horrific. And that's the nature of the beast right now. And how do the Republicans react to an imperial president? With a lawsuit, with full-throated defense of their inability to do anything. I talked about what Obama is and what's going on in this country many years ago as a gradual, quiet coup. And that's what it is. It is a gradual, quiet coup. At the time, I was attacked by the usual sources, by the good people on TV. And now they're all talking about the imperial president, another phrase I reintroduced that Arthur Schlesinger Jr. used against Nixon when he wrote his book. But we have a real imperial president. That word imperial encompasses lawlessness and rogue behavior and so forth. And he is an imperial president. And you now have senators, including Senator Sessions, including Senator Cruz, among others, talking at great length about how this president is conducting himself in ways that are destructive of the Constitution and empower a single man to rule over the country.